I got to fly with Tac Aero, one of the country's most elite flight schools that specializes in landing places that aren't even airports. We were flying a Top Cub, and our mission was to practice some short field landings and progressively work up to landing on a river sandbar. It was a total blast, and here are some of the many lessons that I learned that day. The first thing that stuck out to me in ground school was short field technique. There was a new emphasis here on the importance of really sticking the touchdown, so that way you can land short by not floating too long and you're also not bouncing. It's a real delicate balance. And I found that doing it in a tail wheel made it all the more challenging. There's a lot going on, but basically you want to be able to put the airplane where you want it, at the speed you want it, and at the descent rate you want it, so you don't bounce and you can also stop short. Putting all of those things together definitely increased the challenge factor for me. Ian Waghorn was leading ground school that day, and he's from South Africa, so his description will just sound a lot cooler than mine, so here's how he put it.
As we flare, even though we can sort of flare the aircraft, decelerate, our energy wants to go in this direction, not in this direction. And that's why we'll often say it's more of an arrival than a perfect landing, but we kind of want that. We want the aircraft to touch down firm, but not hard. You don't want to bounce, but you want to have a nice firm landing. Your momentum is traveling vertically, and you have less momentum and energy moving forward.
Now, I'll admit, this sounds easy enough. And I think in ground school, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. But when you actually get in the airplane and all that we just described happens in like 5 or 10 seconds, it's really easy to do it wrong, basically, as you'll see in a minute. But that's also honestly what makes it so fun, because it is challenging. It's really rewarding. After ground school, our plan was to do some slow flight and stalls, landings, spot landings, and then do some progressively shorter airstrips, and then ultimately end up in the sandbar. This was a full day of flying. And during this process, one maneuver that was new for me in particular was called drags. Drags are exactly what they sound like. You're just dragging your wheels down the runway to see how firm it is. You're not totally landing, but you're feeling it out. It's basically a practical maneuver when you're landing on a non-paved runway, but I think the added and hidden bonus here was that it's a really helpful exercise in energy management. For example, the first drag I did, I carried way too much speed. So as you'll see here, we hit a bump and we were flying again.
There, you're flying again, right? Yeah. So let's go around, we'll try that again.
But the second time around, I was able to go a little bit slower. And so in this, you can kind of feel your tail starting to settle, but you don't want it to touch the ground all the way. You're not landing, you're still just trying to drag your mains. So the tail's getting a little spongy on you, and that's when you add a little bit of power, and you're kind of right on the edge there of not having too much power, not fly, but not having too little power to where you're effectively landing. So this was new to me, and I'd love to get the chance to practice this again, because it's a great exercise for really getting a feel of the energy of the airplane.
Okay, we felt as far as we're going to go. Let's go ahead and go around. Good job.
Next, we tried spot landings. The goal here was to try to land really slow with the stall warning going off in a 3-point configuration at a particular spot.
Turning final
Yeah,
for
that
17,
feels pretty good.
Nano.
Right there near that stall horn. Beautiful.
Shouldn't have put the power in it.
Yeah, I'll bet you were 20 feet past it.
Now, I've done spot landings for my commercial while in a tricycle gear airplane. I've also done plenty of short field landings. I'm not bragging here, but I'm just saying, going into this, I was fairly comfortable landing short in my 182. But the combination here of flying a tail wheel and needing to land in a 3-point configuration with the stall warning going off at a certain spot, but also not floating long and also not bouncing, you can get the idea here. Combining all of those things was pretty challenging. One thing that is super obvious to me now, especially while watching this footage, but it wasn't obvious to me the day of, was that I kept floating past the spot because I was actually aiming for the spot instead of aiming for something before the spot. That sounds obvious, but when you're in the moment, it's harder than it sounds. But one thing that was really encouraging to me was my instructor, Chris. As hopefully you're gathering in this video, he was so encouraging and so patient with me as I was trying to just get a little bit better at this.
I told you I'd get difficult. You just waited.
Oh no, you're absolutely normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's interesting how hard it is to get the airplane slowed down to where you want it, and then just kind of balancing act.
Or it doesn't have more energy.
Yeah, you have too much energy, you don't have enough energy, you bounce the airplane.
Now, thankfully, as the day went on, I do feel like my spot landings got better. I got better at kind of hitting the spot we were talking about. But then I really felt like the challenge was not bouncing when you hit the spot, because if I was too fast, I would just float right past it. So then I found myself getting slow, trying to really hit the spot. And then if you don't have enough energy, then you end up kind of dropping out of the sky by a few feet and you bounce, because those big bush tires are basically trampolines. And so that was a tough thing to finesse. And then it occurred to me, I was like, oh, this is what Ian was trying to describe to me in ground school.
We want the aircraft to touch down firm, but not hard. You don't want to bounce, But you want to have a nice firm landing, your momentum is traveling vertically, and you have less momentum and energy moving forward.
Another technique they pointed out was how just a little burst of power, really short burst, while you're in the flare can help keep you from bouncing if you need it.
You come in, you can just kind of do,
Okay.
yeah, just little blurps of the
Just a
throttle will
tiny
just
bit.
slow down that, and it's getting on and off, you know, just to play around with it. So,
Okay. Cool.
okay, here we
All right.
go.
Now, this concept of adding power in the flare, that's not new to me. I do that all the time in the 182 as needed. But what's different to me here was doing it in a little burst instead of having just a small sustained amount of power that you add a little power and leave it in. And it's interesting because if you go watch some of the STOL competitions, you know, short takeoff and landing, you can hear them doing this. That burst is basically just trying to give you the extra energy you need and not an ounce more. So that way you don't accidentally float and land longer. So I think this is something that'll take some practice to get just right, but it's a pretty cool technique.
There you go. Kind of leave that pitch alone there for a second.
Okay.
There you go. Hold it. Pitch up. Now a little burp of power.
Nope, I didn't do it.
Hold that stick back. Don't let it come forward on you.
Yeah, a little tiny bit of power would help there.
Yep. But that was really good.
Okay.
That approach was nice. Good. Let's go do that again. That was cool.
One of the things that really stuck out to me flying with these guys is how encouraging all the people at Tac Aero are. I really think training with them re-emphasized for me that I think the best instructors are the encouraging ones. Now that doesn't mean that everything has to be sunshine and rainbows and everything. I'm all for being strict and having very high expectations, but I think we all know what it's like to fly with an instructor that only speaks up when you're making mistakes. And then if you fly, it makes you fly more tense, which causes you to do more mistakes. So you question if you're doing anything good at all. And these guys are the total opposite. I mean, they're doing some very technical flying, but I think they do it in such an approachable and encouraging way. So once we got to the sandbar, we first got our bearings.
If you look here, there's that lip. That's the end of the runway, and there's like some little chunks of grass that look like dots just after the lip.
Yeah.
So that's really the end of your runway.
And then it was just a matter of bringing together everything we had practiced in different pieces that day, starting with a slow, low pass down the runway.
So right here will be our low pass.
Okay.
All right, and then we could start our shallow right turn.
Next, we did a drag, but this time it wasn't really simulated. I mean, it was for real. We were feeling how spongy the sand was going to be. I got nervous and excited, and I think I had too much power, and I didn't drag it very long, but it was good practice.
Beautiful. Little power here. All right, let's go ahead and start our go-around.
Okay. I didn't drag it very long
No,
there.
not very long, but that's okay.
And then with all of that together, it was time to actually go land on the sand. Now, looking back, I looked pretty focused because I was focused, but make no mistake, inside I was definitely nervous and I was so excited. It was the I've never done anything like this before, but this is awesome type feeling. I was just trying not to screw it up, but man, it was awesome. So here's how it went.
Okay, get rid of that power. And basically a 3-point. Stick the tail. Beautifully done, beautifully done. Nicely done.
I think landing on that sandbar showed me the importance of flying with really experienced pilots like the guys at Tac Aero, and have them show you something your airplane will do that you didn't even know it could do. Sometimes it just takes flying with someone more experienced than you to show you what's out there if you keep practicing. I highly recommend you go watch the full video I did with Tac Aero. It's by far the most challenging video I've ever made from a production standpoint, and I'm really proud of it. But more importantly, I think it could be a really helpful tool for you as I share the full process and I don't hide any of the mistakes that I made. So that video is on the screen right now, and I'll see you there.